Just gonna make a little pinch pot here. You can make these with any number of methods. Pinch pot seems pretty much the most straightforward to me, so that's where I'm going to start. Funny thing about salt and pepper shakers is they always come in pairs, and I don't know about you, but in my house, I don't use a pepper shaker ever. But I use the salt shaker all the time. It's just a really fun way to put salt on your food. But pepper, I usually grind in a grinding mill directly onto whatever food I'm eating. So the pepper shaker is more just a little sculpture that's accepted as needing to be there alongside that salt shaker. But the salty one is the one that gets the most use. By far. By far. So I'm just keeping in mind I want to keep these walls fairly thin. I mean, a salt shaker, you don't want it to have a lot of weight to it. Keeping the walls fairly thin and fairly even, as I would with, any pinch pot that I'm making. So I'm thinking that this is going to be the basic shape of it, and then I'm going to put a bottom on the bottom. And it's the bottom where I really have to pay a little bit more attention as to exactly how thick it is, because the stopper does have a certain groove that needs to fit snugly. So I just have to be a little bit aware, but as long as I keep it pretty thin, it's going to work out well. And these walls should be relatively similar in thickness to the base, to the bottom of this pot. So if this were really wonky, it's a little bit wonky, but I'm not too worried about it. I might want to carve off some of this to make it all even. I'm just going to set that right here for now. Got another smaller hunk of clay, and I'm just going to kind of pinch out this base. Base has to be a little bit wider around. Yeah, I'm just pinch, and rotating. Start from the center and work your way out. That should just about do it. So I want to keep in mind my stopper needs to be, and maybe I'll cut this so I can check really how thick this is. And of course the clay is going to shrink. Clay always shrinks. Hey, autofocus, come on. What gives? There you are. It'll probably be okay. This is going to be a little bit thinner in the middle. I just don't want this to be thicker than that groove by too much. But since it's going to shrink, I think we're going to be in business. Might as well just pinch it out a little bit more for good measure along these edges. Okay, so as long as this lines up fairly well, looks like it does. I just want to make sure I have an overlap to smear some clay from here to here. Remove this. Ooh, this is nice, moist, sticky clay, which is good because I don't have to score and slip. I'm just kind of roughly marking where that center is. Take my punch and punch this hole through. Any weird stuff on the back side, I want to take something and just kind of get rid of that weird stuff, because it's just going to cause me some problems in the future. Smooth it out. Don't want anything rough in there, and that's always going to be on that other side of the cut. This side is usually pretty good. Okay. I've got my top. Just going to put it on the bottom. And secure the two together. You can use a wooden spoon or whatever to do this. I'm just tapping it with my finger because I tend to lose my tools. It's harder to lose my fingers. They're usually around someplace. Compression is really key in ceramics. That's what I always have found. People will tell you otherwise, and they know better than I do. But I know what works for me. Compression works for me. So once I've gone around and I've got this seam, I might say, oh, that's a beautiful seamy feature. I might want to just use that, but I'll probably actually just, to make sure that that's secure, I'm going to smooth it in all the way around. And I could go over this with a rib. I could really smooth this surface till I can see my reflection in it, and then I'll fire it to cone 6, and then that reflection will be lost, and I went to all that trouble for nothing. So why did I do that? I don't know. I should probably just be a little more content with things being imperfect, but the world is imperfect. So maybe, just maybe, if I make a perfect object, it will balance the entire world. But maybe not. Probably not. What do you think about when you're working with clay? If you say nothing, I don't believe you. Depending on how much time you've spent in this process, you're going to be saying a lot of different things in response to that question. Okay, so we can see now I've got this nice and secured, this bottom and top, but whoa, that's not going to work too well on a table. It's going to slide all around. So I'm just going to kind of tap it down so it's flat, so it'll rest flat on my table. So it's flattened out now, but really what I want to do is I want to make it a little bit concave, because I've got this stopper and there's just that little bit of top up here that is going to, it's going to pivot on that if it's not below the bottom of the surface. So I'm just going to take my finger and gently tap around the whole bottom. And it's just going to slightly indent where that hole is. And if it goes a little bit out around, like I said before, these stoppers are really forgiving. So it's not going to matter. You really want to make sure though, yep, you can see, oh, it's going to be below the surface. That's what we want. Okay. So at this point, got to think about the holes, right? What kind of holes do I want? At this stage, when it's still really wet, I can easily make holes with a pin tool. And Just shove it in there and give it a little, it's going to need a little bit of rocking and rolling. Because one little pinprick like that, you're not going to get any salt or pepper out. You need to just rock it around, and don't rock just like this, because that inner hole, if you could see on the inside, is just going to be a tiny pinprick. So you got to kind of go around and around and make sure the whole thing kind of opens up. And then as this sets up, you're going to be able to clean up the rough edges a lot better. I can also let this set up a little bit more, and then I can use a drill or that drill boring tool that I can buy from the ceramics manufacturer to make some nice holes with.